Thank you, and thank you, Mark. It's always so great to hear of the stuff that is amazingly going on in the community in which I live. Mark and I cross paths every now and again, and both kind of have very similar passions for the young people in our community. So to start off with, just to put you in the space that I work in, I'd like you to think back. For some of you, that might be longer ago. I'd like you to think back on this question. What is one thing you wish you'd known at 16? And I'd like you to share that thing with the person next to you.
47A, the bakehouse.
Which is even more like intimidating.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's one thing you wish you'd known at 16? Does anybody really want to share the one thing they wish they'd known? Anyone feeling brave? Anyone? No? Oh, awesome. Yep. Cool. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And amazing how many young people, I was talking about this actually at lunchtime, how many young people are forced to know and don't know and don't have to know. The one thing that I wish I had known when I was 16 is that everything changes constantly. And you can be whoever you want to be going forward in your life. It's not pre-prescribed for you. So my name's Bryan. I work for the Shift Foundation. I'm the operations manager, which sounds fancy. I'm doer of all things. I'm actually the sole employee of the Shift Foundation, which is why that sounds like a fancy title, but actually I do everything. We exist, so we started in 2015 initially with a funding application to Kiwi Sport under Sport Wellington. We were founded at the time by our amazing founder, Fran McEwen, who worked at Wellington City Council. She was the Health and Wellbeing Partnerships Manager there and had been doing a research paper on young women's engagement in physical activity. She knew from personal experience that physical activity, specifically running, had a huge impact for her on her mental health. And there wasn't a lot of data out there in New Zealand at the time to really make those connections and show evidence for that, specifically for teenage girls. So she was doing her research, and from that she managed to apply for some funding from Sport Wellington, Kiwi Sport, to enable her to start something. She made a guess at what that something was in order to get the funding, which was some form of physical activity for young women. So it was initially, the funding was based on the knowledge that there was a huge drop-off of participation in physical activity from young women from about the age of 14 was when they were really seeing the drop. However, not long after the funding came through, obviously, we started to work a little bit more in 2015 around all the other issues that existed for teenage girls and what this looked like. So we work with young women between the ages of 12 and 20. It's just moved down to working with 11-year-olds as well, because that intermediate age group, we can't really separate 11 and 12-year-olds. But as we heard this morning from Susan, all of these issues exist for our young women here in Aotearoa. So this is our purpose. So when we started, we wanted to increase awareness, reduce barriers, and empower young women to have the solutions to fix things for themselves, or at least to know, to have knowledge around what was going on for them. They were the three highlighted areas where we wanted to be working. We started with a set of values, the things that were truly important to us in this work. Co-design. Now, I know co-design is a bit of a buzzword. For us, we've always gone that little bit further. Co-design is not just hearing the voice of young women and implementing something, it is raising their voice to be heard. So for us, the co-design of everything that we are a part of is about how are those young women making sure that they're having the say in those forums. And how are we not just listening and implementing, but also ensuring that what we are then communicating is their voice. It's not us. So it is co-design in a way, but it's actually more us supporting the young women that we work with. Empowerment. How do we find opportunities for the young woman in everything that we do, any connections we can make that strengthen them, that make them feel more empowered? That is our business. Inclusivity and accessibility, that goes obviously a massive way. And we're only really, at the very 4 years in, we're only really scratching the surface on how accessible and inclusive we can be as an organisation. Holistic, so encompassing all areas of young women. We realised very early on, and it's no surprise to anyone, that when you work with humans, you can't separate out the different parts of their lives. You have to approach them as a whole being. Collaboration, so the key word for today. Working in partnership with others who share similar values was one of our values when we first started, and I'll talk more to that as we go along. Whanaungatanga, another word that's come up already today. It's always been very, very important to put people first, build communication and relationship first, because without people, we can't run a change-making organisation for humans. Safety and wellbeing, putting the safety and wellbeing of ourselves as runners of the program first and role modelling that. If you're not well, you don't go to work. Because that's what we tell our young people. If you're not well, your health comes first. So actually role modelling that, walking the talk. And fun. We're trying to breathe fun and lightness and playfulness back into the lives of young women. But what that looks like for them, not what I think is fun, because obviously what I think is fun is not what they think is fun. But ensuring that everything that they are a part of is fun from start to finish. So the approach that we have is a human-centred design approach. It's about understanding the problem, and that initially was understanding the wicked problem of how do you improve wellbeing for young women. Now we take it on an individual level, so each individual problem that young women come up with, how do we take that? How do we support them to prototype in their space? Try new things, experiment, don't fear failure. Failure doesn't exist, there is only learning, which Mark was talking about before. Come up with ideas, be creative. Don't see the problem as the end, as the wall. We can move past it, we can keep making changes, we can keep reflecting, we can keep adapting. So we tried some stuff. Young woman said, we want to go mountain biking. We want to try healthy cooking. We want glow yoga. We want to box. We want to feel strong and powerful. We want to make bliss balls. We want to join a netball team. We want to play in a tournament. So these are all things that the young women that we worked with told us in the first couple of years. We just went along. It's like, yep, we can do that. Sweet. We can do that. And we constantly heard their voice throughout that and got them to tell us how it made them feel, what they enjoyed about it, what they needed in the environment. One thing we heard a lot of was food. We'll hang out with you if you bring food. And that in itself is a really smart way for us to collaborate and co-design other opportunities for people who food is their thing. So we're not nutritionists, we're not experts in anything really apart from hanging out with young women. But that then presents an opportunity for us to bring in those people who are working in that space and build in the food in the way in which we want them to experience it. So by saying, yep, we'll hang out if you bring food, we can say, cool, we'll bring a nutritionist in and we'll do, food in an informative way and in a way that gives them choices. So after the second year, we formed a case study for Sport Wellington. And the case study was a way of us showing visually, really, about the work that we were doing. A lot of this stuff we've talked about already today, so this is just our version, I suppose, about how we put young women at the centre of everything that we do. So as you can see, the yellow circle, that's the young woman. And then we've got their circles of influence as it goes out on the outside. Once this is written down for us in this way, it's kind of like stakeholder mapping, I suppose. It's really clear who the collaborators are that we need to be working with. And the truth is, the collaborators are all of these people, because all of these people have some kind of connection and influence to the individual young woman. So they are all potential collaborators for us, especially in the fact that we want to work holistically. Working holistically means we want to affect change in all of these areas where there might be negative influences or difficulty or imbalance for each individual young woman. One of the frameworks that we use to do this is the evidence-based 5 ways to wellbeing. This was really great for us from the very beginning because it gave us just a tool, a really clear tool that we could show people and share and engage with and experience. And we could also double check ourselves that everything that we were running hit all 5 bubbles. So as soon as we started to even remotely develop any kind of programs, we already had an amazing framework to do so and to share with our other youth workers that were working with young people. We then started to build a bit of an evidence-based evaluation model because of the way that we were working, which was quite innovative. We had to kind of do things a little bit differently. So we now use the human capital model alongside the 5 ways to wellbeing to build our evidence base. So everything that we are engaging with and everything that we now run, we use these two as our evidence-based evaluation. So it's a way of checking back that we're hitting the marks that that we want to be hitting, but also it enables us to see the journey for a young person individually. Have they gained more in the human capital model? Were they only acknowledging one of the 5 ways to wellbeing and now they have 3? Really easy and simple, but it's also easy and simple to share with them so they understand. And it's not an outside evaluation, it's an evaluation that they do. I just love this quote. If you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. This is something that we hold really true. And I think it's really important as we continue our work to continue to hold. We can't continue to do the same things, even now, we can't continue to do the same things we've been doing for the past few years. The world for our young women is changing so fast. Even from when I was at high school, the world is very, very different. And so what I would have wanted then and what I think is cool, it's no longer cool and it's no longer needed for our young people. So this is a really important quote that we always try and reflect back on and constantly reiterate in the work that we do. So to be creative, these are the worlds that we try and work in. So we follow a human-centered design process in our work, but we also ensure that we're working across the 4 worlds. So for us in Shift, wellbeing, social entrepreneurship, design, and physical activity are our 4 spheres that we focus on. Wellbeing, obviously, is quite a big word. So we're really aware that within that are a number of these outcomes along the bottom. And so we actually acknowledge all of those sitting within one of those 4. I'm not sure how easy it is to read those words at the bottom, but we've got leadership, creativity, stress relief, movement, relationships, nutrition, body confidence, connection with nature, and confidence. All areas that young women have told us they want to be experiencing, gaining knowledge in, and building skills in. And at the moment, we have these tools to deliver that. So we run Lead Hership, which is individual programs with small groups of young women where they learn leadership tools and they then have the opportunity to either deliver something for their peers or for their communities to increase the well-being of that area. Or it might just be leadership of self. So they may just go away with more tools to lead their own lives. Just Shift It, which is any form of movement and wellbeing opportunity, the tagline being shift your body, shift your mind. The idea of that is it's anything that young women have said to us, we really want to try that, or I want to do that, or I want to be a part of this, or how might we have a workshop on this? And we partner alongside other organisations who are the experts in that space to make it happen. Give Back, Shift Forward, opportunities for young women to which cost is a massive barrier to participation, and working on how might we raise funds or opportunities, sponsorship to enable those opportunities. The Shift Challenge, which is a social entrepreneurship challenge, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and Empower Her, which is a one-day conference that is designed and run by a group of young women. So we actually focus on collective impact. I know there was a talk this morning that mentioned about collective impact in New Zealand, but I do just want to touch on it because I suppose the 5 points here and the principles of practice are something that have been really useful for us. I wouldn't necessarily mean that we are following a whole collective impact model, but some of these things have been really, really important. And at the moment, the way in which we're working, excuse me, Shift is actually working as a bit of a backbone organisation. So I'll continue to talk about that. But having a common agenda, shared measurement systems, mutually reinforcing activities, continuous communication and building relationship, and a backbone support organisation are the 5 key points of collective impact. So knowing that we can't separate those young women from those 5 spheres that we saw earlier, collective impact, in our view, is the only way that we can collaborate and work together with everyone in the region to ensure we're making a difference. So these are the principles of practice, and there's a couple that have been really important to us from the very beginning, one of which, customised for local context, locally led. So that's one thing that we have really taken to heart, as well as include community members in the collaborative and design and implement the initiative with a priority based on equity. So this is the delivery model of Shift. Currently, the Shift Foundation, as I said, has a single employee. We are a charitable trust. As we got bigger and bigger, we had to move out of Wellington City Council and form our own charitable trust in order to continue to do the work. So we just had to follow the path that we were being led down by young women. So what we now do as an organisation is we partner with local organisations, mainly youth work organisations who are already connected to young people, in order to deliver those shift programs that I talked about before. So we collaborate with each individual organisation, of which there's 5 across the Wellington region, which sees us working in 6 different areas. So we've got Kapiti, Porirua, Wellington City, Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt, and the Wairarapa. So we have a coordinator, a youth worker or 2 who works in each one of those regions running the shift programs, but they're actually employed by a partner organisation. So as you can see here, it's their role, I suppose, to carry through the shift values for their own community, but then the whole program is locally led using the voice of the young woman in that particular community. Even in Wellington, between the regions, which aren't that far apart, we see a massive difference in the needs and the delivery of each individual program. So, for example, Just Shift It in Wellington Central is quite a lot of big events. We have a lot of colleges there. Young women have Wellbeing days. So coordinators are turning up to Wellbeing days and often running dance sessions for 100 people. Whereas in a lot of the other communities, say Kapiti, for example, it's smaller groups of about 8 young women building regular opportunities for that particular group. It's a lot more targeted, and that's the way that it works, and that's the opting in that we get from those regions. So these are our amazing delivery partners. Each one brings something very different. So that's something that's been really important to us, is that they align in values with us. They're very passionate about young women. They also want to see wellbeing increased in their region for young women, so we partner on that. But what they bring to the table is all very different. So as a collaboration, each individual partner is a very different collaboration. Even though it's technically the same project, it's a new relationship, it's very different. The relationships that they have in their region are very different, and what they're passionate about delivering is also slightly different. So each one is really unique.
The Shift Challenge is an accelerator program for Wellington women aged 15 to 20 who want to make a positive shift in their community. If you're passionate about well-being, including positive mental health, cooking and healthy food, building confidence and self-love, or getting others active and having fun, this challenge is for you. Through a series of interactive events, you'll learn about social entrepreneurship and human-centered design. In teams, you'll come up with solutions to empower young women in your community, and our expert mentors will help you to test and develop your ideas. Your team will have the opportunity to pitch for funding to make your project into a reality and make a real impact in your community. You'll grow your confidence as a leader, make lifelong friends, and have a lot of fun. The Shift Challenge begins in the April school holidays and finishes in November with a project launch event that includes international special guests. To find out more and to sign up, check out the Shift website. Applications close April 10.
So that's an example of one of our amazing collaborations with, as you could see, there are a number of organisations at the end, all bringing their own expertise to the forum, and we enabled young women to share what they were passionate about, and then the experts were then present to mentor them if that was the field that they were interested in being a part of. From that, a number of really cool projects came out of it, and that's the other thing about working with young women and being co-designed that can be a bit of a challenge, is that you offer these opportunities, you get them to share their voice, they tell you, and then you have to support that opportunity to the end, or until they take on something else or they're not interested anymore. You have a responsibility then to see it through and to support them. So we put together the challenge, and we couldn't really tell people what was going to come of it because it was a 100% co-design process, and the young women were going to tell us what they wanted to engage in. One of the opportunities, this is Sophie. So Sophie was year 13 at Wellington Girls, and she came to the challenge. And she was really, really passionate about nutrition and healthy eating. And it really annoyed her that her school was directly opposite the New World, and that on lunch breaks, most young women would go to the New World and they would buy tubs of ice cream and eat them with a spoon between 4 of them in a lunch break. And things like that. So that was frustrating her. She wanted to find a way to break the barriers or to give them the tools to know what snacks are better for them. If you want a snack, cool, but how do we do it well? So she then collaborated a lot with our support, with Healthy Futures, and also with Food Savvy, to put on a series of workshops at her school for young women to come to, where they learnt about the effects of fizzy drinks, but also the effects of snacks, certain snacks and the high sugars, and how might they turn some things around, what could they be doing differently, and how might they do it a bit better, which was really, really successful. And the school actually asked us to go back and run more, but because it was Sophie's project and she's gone off travelling, we didn't have the capacity to go and deliver them. It wasn't our project, it was hers. So although we're making those connections at the moment, it's been really popular, and the young women definitely want more as part of their wellbeing days, which is really cool. The second example of a really cool collaboration that we've been doing is in Lower Hutt at the moment. It's a collaboration with Ignite Sport, who are actually one of our delivery partners. So the Shift Foundation and Ignite Sport have grouped together to work with a group of young women who were labelled at risk by their college. We as an organisation don't really like to use that term, but it is often how schools and organisations identify some groups of young women to us as young women who would benefit from things that we're running. So this particular group engaged last year when they were year 10s in a Just Shift It program, and when they realised that their voice was being heard and that they could try things that they were asking for, they asked could they do it again this year. So alongside Ignite Sport, we our Lower Hutt coordinator, has created an awesome program for them that runs throughout the whole year to increase their wellbeing, their opportunities of leadership, and also to bond more as a group, so to really foster that connection that they have as a group. This is a particular image, which is also a great collaborator that we have, Wellington Boxing Gym. And they are amazing at supporting the work that we do and running classes specifically for young women of this age group. The other two organisations that have been amazing for this collaboration, who've provided extra youth workers to come along and support the work and also bring their own expertise in the areas that they work in, is the New Zealand Police. So the youth aid officer for the Hutt Valley attends these day sessions every 3 weeks. And a youth worker from Vibe as well, to share her knowledge and insights and also be a person that they can talk to about certain things in that safe space that's been created. I think the thing that's really important in both of these collaborations is to notice that the Shift Foundation don't own any of this stuff. We have no interest in owning anything, owning a program, owning an outcome. We just want to see it happen. And I think that that's a really big key for us in collaboration, and the collaborations that we have, is that we go in just wanting to make things better for young women. And if that happens, nothing else matters. Wherever the finances come from, whoever puts the work in, there's acknowledgement, obviously. Everyone deserves to be acknowledged who's a part of it, but nobody is trying to be the forefront. For us, if there's organisations working to increase the wellbeing of young women in any capacity, that is awesome, and we're there. We want to be there supporting you in the work that you do. In this case, this project is very much run by Ignite Sport. So although we have a hand in some of the tools that are used, some of the resourcing, it's very much a locally led approach. Challenges. Sorry, I'll speed through this last bit. So the challenges that we found with being very open source, very collaborative, with coming to the table just saying, hey, look, we've got values and we're really keen to see things improve, but whatever you think is best, like, we're keen to work with you. Being very, very open. Articulating the vision for Shift has been really hard, partly because each individual region that we work in, we have to hear what their vision is to support their young women first. So trying to say, the Shift Foundation are going to do this or this or this, and be that prescribed before we've actually even heard the voice of young women has been really difficult. Failure. When I started, I had a massive fear of failure. I was the only individual youth worker working for this project. I didn't know what was going to happen or how it was going to go, and to sit with that and learn myself that failure doesn't exist in this world that we live in, that there is only learning and continuing and accepting, that didn't quite work, that's cool. And then being able to role model that for young women. So helping them to see that there is no pass or fail, there is just learning. Growing trust in our ways of working, so the very flexible way that we work and the way that we just connect first on a human level and then say, what can we do together? It is often quite different, and that takes a while for people to see that the work that we do actually makes a difference. Expanding the reach of collaboration, so being open, as I said before, with all the circles, being open to collaborating with anyone in any of those circles. There is so much creativity and inspiration from everyone who works with young women. We are not the experts in anything, as we always say, but working together and knowing more about your passion for young women and my passion for young women, there's always that potential to collaborate no matter what sector you work in. Funding competition, so that's something that is especially in the youth development space. The Ministry of Youth Development has the smallest amount of funding to give, and yet there's a huge amount of people working in this space who do amazing work seeking funding. So funding competition is something we've tried to break down from the very beginning. We're not protective over the money that we have. In fact, we'd rather give it to those organisations already doing the work. If we can find a way to work together to get the money, that's great. Otherwise, how can we do it in any other way? Why does it have to be about funding? Again, once you put the young women back at the centre, it doesn't matter who's getting the money as long as the work's being done. Protecting our territory, so being open source, not being really protective over the programs that we're running or anything that we're learning, sharing everything. And thinking that we knew best, that we knew what was best for young women, that from the evidence we could tell that this needed to happen and that needed to happen. So that was something that took a lot of learning. We made some mistakes, like when we ran a tree climbing event. We got 5 arborists to come and they put up things in the trees and we're like, this is amazing, this is so great, it's in nature, it's physical activity, it's tree climbing, it's so cool. Nobody came. Nobody came because we didn't ask them if they wanted to do it. We wanted to do it and we thought it was cool. Learning number 1. So just to close off, at the moment, these are the amazing organisations that currently fund us. So it is, as you can see, quite a mix. It has to be quite a mix because of the holistic way in which we work and the different areas that we get drawn into. So currently, they are the organisations that fund us, and we are so pleased to have them. And this is just a little bit of information to leave you with from our annual report from last year. So as you can see here, last year, we had 4,038 participants in the Wellington region at Just Shifted events, so anything movement-based, over 163 sessions. 252 women completed the leadership course. We had 149 at our Empower Her, which was really cool, and 35 did the Shift Challenge. I'd say 25 of which then went on to run their own projects, either in their colleges or in their communities, which was awesome. We now work with 27 schools. At the end of last year, it was 23. They are another amazing collaborator. The collaboration with schools, I've found, is something that needs a lot of time. They are so busy, overrun, and crazy, but that doesn't mean that the need isn't there. So that's something that we work really, really hard on, is our way of working around being as flexible as we can around what do schools need and how can we just be what they need us to be. And this is the one I like the most. 47, just in the Wellington region, 47 health and wellbeing providers that we work with. So these are all people who also want to see young women happy and healthy. And they work with us on such a great level in that we share expertise with, we've worked with young women for a few years and these are some things we've learned. So if you're running courses for them or you're running things for them, these are things we could tell you. And they're more than happy to try that in order to also see the same things happen. Again, they also have things to teach us because they are the experts in their field. So that's all really awesome partnerships there. The other one I would just like to mention is the 29 young women that we helped through the Give Back Shift Forward Fund. So being a charitable trust, obviously we do have some charitable things happen and we do fundraise every now and again. Those 29 young women, a number of them were enabled to participate in their own school teams. I think 24 couldn't afford to actually participate in teams at school and wanted to. So that's quite a big number. And then the other 5, we have an amazing collaboration with Outward Bound, and they give us scholarships. So we provided scholarships for young women to attend Outward Bound. Do give us a follow at Shift Foundation NZ. That's also our email address. We currently do only work in the Wellington region, but are always open to conversation and sharing our knowledge and evidence that we're gaining. So always love to hear from people and email and things. Happy to have a chat with you on the phone as well if there's anything else you want to know. The one thing I would say is don't be afraid of working with teenage girls. They are amazing. They are so amazing and they know so much about the world. And they have so much to teach us. So don't shy away from them because, yeah, they're really fantastic. Thank you.